Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in January. But before we get to that, obviously I have not uploaded in like a month for various reasons. But I know that I was planning on putting up a best of 2018, like my 10 favorite books of 2018. I did get that filmed, and when I went to edit it, I was not happy with that video for many different reasons. Number one, my mood was just not in it. I was just doing it to do it, and I was doing it at a time where I just wasn't mentally there or emotionally there, and so I just did not like how I came across in that video. It was almost like forced, and like I just did not want to do it, and I didn't want to film. And so I didn't like it because of that. And then second, I guess because of that, like I was just not making sense half of the time. I was just like, I don't know, and it was kind of hard for me because some of these books that I read were from the beginning of the year, and so I was kind of like choppy when it came to explaining what things were, but whatever. I deleted that video. I was gonna put it up anyways. I was like, you know what, because sometimes I'm my worst, all the time, I'm my worst enemy, and I won't do something because I won't like it, when in reality it's probably not that bad. But either way, I deleted that video. But I don't know if this is something that you guys want to see on my channel. I know that everybody has their best of 2018 up. We're already in February, so I don't know that I would do it unless you guys want to see my favorite books of 2018. Then I will go ahead and do it. And also, I have another video that I do have ready. I just got to do some final edits, and it is my Cramathon vlog. I did vlog it. I told you guys I was going to do it, but I have not uploaded it yet for whatever reasons. I don't know what the reasons are. I love watching vlogs. They're one of my favorite videos to watch because I'm just nosy and I want to see what everybody's day-to-day is like. And I have my favorite booktubers that I just love to watch their vlogs. But it's something that I struggle with myself as far as content for me to put up. Vlogs just aren't something that I like editing, number one. And number two, I don't know, it's just, I'm boring. I am a boring AF woman. So if you guys want to see the Cramathon vlog, let me know down below and I will go ahead and put it up for you guys. But I do have it. Sometimes I'll just delete it because I don't like it, or I won't continue, or I'll stop vlogging halfway through. But I have the vlog this time. It might not be good, but it's there. So let me know if you guys are interested in seeing that. But now, on to what this video is about. I am so excited for January's wrap up because I have read one of my most favorite books in the entire world. I opened up 2019 with a book that has become my favorite of all time. This one has made it to the #1 slot, has bumped everybody else down, and I'm just so excited to talk about it. I did unbox this in one of the horror subscription boxes in the Twitter Stone box, and the minute that I saw this book, I knew there was a connection between the book and I. It was just something. If you guys want to go back, I will link that video up here because you guys will see my reaction when I took this book out of this box. So with that, all that being said, my favorite book of all time and for the month of January, and what I opened 2019 with, is The Rust Maidens by Gwendolyn Kist. I don't know if it's Kist or Kiste, but oh my gosh, this book. So like I said, this is what I started off 2019 with. So after reading this book, I was like, I'm either gonna slump so hard that I'm probably not gonna read for the rest of the year, or I'm just gonna read this over and over and over again. Guys, I read this book and literally the next day I wanted to reread it. I think I read the last like chapter or a couple of pages at least 8 times. I was sobbing in bed finishing this book up. I was like sobbing so hard that I was moving the bed, and I was so scared of waking my husband up. But this book, it's everything. This book has me speechless. I wanted to review this book over on Instagram and obviously Goodreads. And I swear to you, I finished this book the first week of January, And I wasn't able to review this book until probably last week or sometime this week, like the beginning of February, because every time that I sat down to write how I felt about this book, or even a synopsis, a review of this book, I just couldn't, and I still can't. I get tongue twisted, I get stuck on what to say, but it is just so deep, so moving, so nostalgic. I want to look at this book forever. And one thing that I keep saying is that, do you see this cover? This cover is exactly what the contents of this book is. Like the look, the feel, the colors, everything that's here is just how this book feels while you're reading it. And I don't know if that comes across, like if what I'm trying to say comes across, but this is just how I felt reading this book. Like her face, the steel mills in the background. So this takes place in two timelines, like I said before. We are following this woman. Her name is Phoebe Shaw, in her, I don't know if in her late 30s or 40s. And then she is recounting what happened back in 1980 with her and a group of girls, or a group of girls that she knew or was acquainted with in high school. Basically, she comes back and she's helping her mom move from the house that they're at, because the neighborhood has just gone down. They're tearing down all those houses, so everybody has to move because there's gonna be some development there or something. And so she's coming back and she's thinking about everything that happened in the summer of 1980 with the Rust Maidens. They're just a group of girls not associated with each other per se, but this event sort of brought them together where they were transforming into something else. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna read the back of this of the book to explain what this book is about, because I can't. Till today, a month later, and I still cannot form words other than I freaking love this book to say. So it's a summer of 1980 in Cleveland, Ohio, and Phoebe Shaw and her best friend Jacqueline have just graduated high school, only to confront an ugly, uncertain future. Across the city, abandoned factories populate the skyline. Meanwhile, at the shore, one strong spark and the Cuyahoga River might catch fire. But none of that compares to what's happening in their own West Side neighborhood. The girls, Phoebe and Jacqueline, have grown up with a changing. It starts with footprints of dark water on the sidewalk. Then, one by one, the girls' bodies wither away, their fingernails turning to broken glass and their bones exposed like corroded metal beneath their flesh. As rumors spread about the grotesque transformations, soon everybody from nosy tourists to clinic doctors and government men start arriving on Denton Street, eager to catch sight of the Rust Maidens in metamorphosis. But even with all the onlookers, nobody can explain what's happening or why, except perhaps the Rust Maidens themselves. Whispering in secret, they know more than they're telling, and Phoebe realizes her former friends are quietly preparing for something that will tear their neighborhood apart. Alternating between past and present, Phoebe struggles to unravel the mystery of the Rust Maidens and her own unwitting role in the transformations before she loses everything she's held dear: her home, her best friend, and even perhaps her own body. Oh my gosh, it's such a phenomenal book. It has all these elements that I love in a book, starting from the 1980s to friendships, those deep connected friendships. It also has steel mills and the fall of, in the 1980s where all of these workers and unions and stuff were left without a job in Cleveland. And, we just come back. When she comes back into the neighborhood, it's just like the abandoned steel mills. Just gave it this kind of atmosphere that I just love in a book. And just her desperation trying to figure out what is going on with her best friend and all these other girls. The writing is just incredible. The writing sucks you in and it makes you feel despair. It makes you feel the horror that is really going on. It touches on family and financial statuses, and it's just phenomenal. I urge you to read this book if you haven't already. I'm dying to pick up more of her work because her writing, I think, is what made me fall in love. Besides all the other atmospheric things that the book has that it's very, very important But it was just so outrageous and so bizarre, something that I just can't picture happening. Needless to say, I gave this 1,000,000 stars. I gave this 5 stars, and I would give it 1,000,000 if I could, because it's just that phenomenal. Next book I read for the month of January was Feed by Myra Grant. This is a book that I have been wanting to read the whole entire year of 2018. Such a fantastic zombie read. I will say that I had higher hopes for this book. I ended up giving this 4 stars, so not bad. It's phenomenal zombie book. But everybody kept telling me how good and how good and how good and how good and how good this book was, that I guess I had higher expectations. Like, I was going into this like this was gonna be 5 stars, and it was close. Getting to it, this basically goes back to 2014. We are currently in 2000 and I think 39 or 2034. We're in like 2030 something, right? But in 2014 there was a zombie outbreak. They had actually cured cancer, beaten the common cold and all of this, but in doing so, the creation of these 2 cures created zombies. And so while that is fantastic, this book is not about zombies. This book is basically about people just surviving and continuing life after a zombie outbreak. We follow a couple or a few bloggers, and that's just how the world has become with social media. We get our news from bloggers. There's different tiers of bloggers. And so we're following a few, 3 to be exact. We're following a brother and sister, and we're following, I forgot her name. I forgot the other girl's name, but it's basically the main characters are Sean and Georgia, which are the brother and sister, and they are chosen to follow a presidential campaign and just basically vlog or blog everything that happens in this presidential campaign and this certain president or president runner-up. And so this is the first book in a trilogy. And so it's a very political book. It's a book of what would happen 20 years down the road if there was a zombie outbreak. And the way most people see it is basically nothing. There's no government. There would be nothing, you know. It would just be The Walking Dead, right? So that's how I would see it. But this basically does continue on. The government is still working. The military is still working. You know, you have procedures to follow as far as blood testing and stuff to make sure that you're not contaminated. Zombie occurrences in the book is not much. You have a few here and there of zombie appearances, but that is not what this book is about. But either way, 4 stars. It is a fantastic book. I am eager to get into the second one, but not as eager as I thought I would be. So yeah, Feed by Myra Grant. The good news, we survived. The bad news, so did they. So pretty interesting take on a zombie apocalypse. Next book I read is Lie to Me by J.T. Ellison, and this is just your typical thriller. I've been reading a lot of thrillers lately. I've always loved a good thriller. The thing with thrillers is when you read a few, you know, when you read a thriller, you get hooked and you just start reading and reading and reading thrillers, and they all just start to mash together. They all start to not be so, they're just very predictable. So, you know, that's what thrillers are. And I know a lot of people complain that thrillers are very predictable, and they are. So I always go into a thriller knowing that it's going to be predictable. So my hopes aren't that high that I'm not going to figure out what's what. But in this book, we start off with a husband going downstairs, getting ready to see his wife in the morning routine, knowing how everything is going to go. But surprise, surprise, his wife is not where she always is. And she apparently has left a note talking about, bye, I'm leaving. Don't come looking for me. And that's that. You know, I need to get away. Leave me alone. Don't come looking for me. And he's like, okay. All right, so she'll be back, you know, like she just needs her time. But as the day goes, as the minutes keep going, because I don't want you to think it's like a whole day, but as the minutes keep going, he just gets like this uncomfortable feeling, and he's like, well, what about if something's really wrong with her, because it's not like her to do this. So when he starts questioning, he gets the police involved, her friends, yada yada, things go from there. This book is told in two perspectives. Throughout halfway of the book, we go into the wife's perspective. So very, very interesting book. I think my favorite had to be the second half from the wife's perspective. And just the scenery and all that jazz. Very, very good book. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read was The Drowning by J.P. Smith. I will put a picture of it right up here because I did read this as an ebook. Thank you so much to NetGalley for allowing me to read this book to review. I'm going to start off with what I rated this book. I gave this book 3 stars and I was left a little bit disappointed by it. This is a book that I had seen at Barnes & Noble one day, and I'm really trying to measure out the books that I buy or what I spend money on, and I'm trying only to spend money on new releases because I have so many backlist books that honestly, if it's not a book that I really wanted to read, and if it's not new release, I'm trying not to buy it. So as it was, I didn't know anything about this book. I just remember seeing it and the cover really grabbed me. But I ended up leaving it because I had like 3 other books in my hands. And so I never bought it. But scrolling through NetGalley, I saw that they had it available and I requested it and got approved. So I was really excited to read this book. I'm going to start with the pros and why I gave this book 3 stars. Because I think that if it wouldn't have been because of these elements, I probably would have ended up giving it a 2 star. But this, we follow a kid, Joey Proctor, that goes missing. He's 8 years old and he goes missing from a summer camp one day, and he is never found again. Now there are urban legends that there is this man or kidnapper that comes and kidnaps a kid every year. And so this kid just coincidentally goes missing the day after they had gathered all the kids around campfires to tell them this spooky urban legend story. And so I loved that aspect of it. And I think that's one of my favorite things when I see that a book is solely, or not solely, but that has that summer camp story or plot to it, is just, you know, how creepy it can be with the campfires and the scary stories and the s'mores and all of this stuff. I never personally went to a summer camp per se far, or, you know, where you would stay for a week or so, but it's one of my favorite things to read about. And so this really, although it's not a main point in the book, though it is and it isn't, it only really is talked about a couple of times within this environment. So that made it very enjoyable for me. And another thing, this book was a real page turner. You're trying to find out what happened to this kid, Joey Proctor. Are these urban legends real? So it's a definite page turner, but one thing that I found the book to have is an up and down in the sense of the writing. You know, for a couple pages, the writing was intense. It was catching, it was grabbing, it had you going, and then it would sort of like drop the ball. It was just this monotonous kind of writing, and then it would pick back up and you're like invested in the story, and then it would drop. So it was like this roller coaster of writing styles, if you will. And so that was a little bit of a turn down, but even with that, it was a very fast-paced book. But one of the things that left me sort of like really about it, it just had too many loose ends for me. So because of that, it was just too many, because you know, you can have loose ends in a book and be okay with it, but there was just too many loose ends left to where I just was not satisfied. But if it wouldn't have had those elements that I liked as far as the summer camps and all of that, I think it would have been 2.5. Either way, I enjoyed it for the most part, but it just left me a little bit disappointed at the end. And my battery is blinking again. Thank God that we're to the last 2 books. Then I read Don't Wake Up by Liz Lawler. This is a book that was sent to me for review from Harper. Thank you very much to Harper for sending this to me for review. This was unsolicited, so I didn't even know I was getting it. Here we follow Dr. Alex Taylor, and basically at the beginning of this book, she wakes up on an operating table having no idea how she ended up there. You know, she wakes up, there's only this one surgeon in the room, and basically there's a procedure going on. There's nobody else. She wakes up here not knowing how she showed up, how she got there basically, and so the story develops from there. She is a doctor at this hospital where she wakes up. She's trying to tell her colleagues, because they've, you know, she knocks out again in the middle of this procedure, and she is found laying in the parking lot, and so she wakes up again with her colleagues checking her over, and she's like, wait, hold on, I was raped, there is somebody loose in this hospital, we need to get them. I was in this theater and they were performing a surgery on me, check this, this, and this, and everybody's like, what? And nobody believes her that this actually did happen. And so we are left through a whole, like, that's at the beginning, like that's in the first 20 pages that this happens. Then we're left like with these whole salutes of like things going on in this book, and we don't see the same events happen again until the ending of the book, when it resurfaces again, and she finds herself again on an operating table for the second time, not knowing how she got there. This has a very, very, very strong beginning. Like I said, though, that first thing where she wakes up and all of that is happening is within the first 15 to 20 pages, so it has a strong start. You're like, yes, grip me into this book, and then it sort of like falls flat, and you know, it's like, but then at the end it picks back up, you know. So there's like just this big middle chunk that's still interesting but is not as grabbing. It sort of like drops the ball a little bit. This author, Liz Lawler, she is a former nurse, so you can see her knowledge of the medical industry and the hospital setting kind of thing, but it wasn't too much. You know how sometimes there are just too many medical terms? It wasn't too much. It was written beautifully in my opinion, in the sense of there wasn't over information of medical stuff other than what was really happening, and for you to understand really what was going on. Excuse me. So I ended up giving this 3 stars. Very, very enjoyable. It was really fast paced. I mean, I read this relatively quickly, and if it's other than that middle portion that sort of left you like, ugh, it was a pretty interesting book. And then the last book that we're gonna come to is The Gunslinger from the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Really quickly, because my battery is about to turn off. I struggled with this book, as is normal from what I hear. We follow the gunslinger and he's trying to get somewhere. That's all really I can say. But this is just really a setting for the rest of the series from what I hear. I am participating in a read-along with one of the girls over on Instagram. I will leave her Instagram link down below just in case you might want to join us. We are reading The Drawing of the Three, which I have over there because I had already started it. We're reading The Drawing of the Three for the month of February, so if this is a read-along that you guys would like to participate in, I would leave the information down below, but there's not much that I can say about this other than we're meeting the gunslinger and a few other characters, one of them being Jake, whom I love. But I kind of struggled through with this one. I am just going to continue because of this read-along, and I've been told that it gets a lot better, so I'm eager to see where this goes, if my feelings change towards the second book, which I hear is one of the best books, but you know, everybody's opinion is different on which book is the best. So yeah, excited to continue my Stephen King journey. You guys know this is probably my 3rd Stephen King or my 4th Stephen King. So I'm excited to continue on with the journey of Stephen King, and I am so glad I picked a read-along because I probably would have DNF'd this book and not continued with the series if I had not been warned. That's it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read for the month of January. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!